I was late to meet my fiance's rich father. I stopped to give my food to a man with no home. My name is Grace, and I was late. Not the kind of late you can simply shrug off. This was the sort of tardiness that brands you as careless, undeserving, and not serious enough for the family I was about to marry into. My fiancé, Matthew, had cautioned me. He values punctuality above all else. She was speaking of her father, the millionaire, a man whose approval she swore mattered more than her own. On the way to his sprawling mansion, I noticed a man sitting on the curb. His clothes were tattered, and his face was etched with a profound hunger. He didn't ask for anything. He just sat there, clutching his silence as if it were his last possession. My lunch was in my bag, untouched. I stopped and offered it to him. His eyes met mine. They were sharp, assessing, and far too alive for a man beaten down by the streets. He said nothing, simply giving a single nod. That brief interlude cost me 7 minutes. 7 minutes that would ultimately change the course of my life. The mansion was exactly as I had pictured it. Cold, marble floors, chandeliers heavy with opulence, and walls that carried the scent of power and privilege. But what I hadn't anticipated was him. The man I'd given my lunch to was seated at the head of the dining table. He was now impeccably dressed, his back straight, with a faint smile playing on his lips. "Ah," he said, his voice rich and unhurried. "Grace, you're late." I froze, my stomach knotting. Matthew rushed to my side, whispering frantically, "That's him, my father." Back then, I believed her. I believed every promise she made. The whispered dreams of the vast empire we would one day inherit. I chose to ignore the way her eyes would dart away. When she thought I wasn't looking, I ignored how her affection would suddenly turn cold. Whenever money wasn't part of the conversation, I desperately wanted to believe that she had chosen me for me, that I wasn't merely another piece in her father's grand game. But pawns eventually awaken. The signs were subtle at first. The late-night messages she claimed were from friends. The sudden coldness in bed, the way her hand would pull away from mine. Then, one day I saw her smile reflected in a window wit was too warm, too genuine, and it wasn't meant for me. The undeniable proof soon followed. A hotel receipt tucked away in her purse. 2 empty glasses on the kitchen counter when I arrived unannounced at her apartment. And the most devastating discovery of all, my best friend's jacket, forgotten on her chair. She didn't even bother to deny it. She just stared at me, her lips curving into that same careless smirk I once foolishly mistook for charm. "You'll never be more than what my father allows you to be," she said. That night, something inside me broke, and something else took its place. I didn't scream or beg. I simply smiled. I let her believe I had accepted my fate, but a new plan was already forming in my mind. Her father, the man she called a millionaire, wasn't who he seemed. The entire act of being a man on the street wasn't random. It was a deliberate test. He judged people by removing his wealth and observing who stopped, who ignored him, and who sneered. I had passed his test before I even stepped foot into his house. What Matthew never realized, what her father had so carefully concealed, was that I was already in his confidence. That very first night after our dinner, he pulled me aside. "You see through surfaces," he told me. "That makes you dangerous. Stay quiet. Play along. You'll understand soon." So I did. I allowed Matthew to believe she was the one manipulating me. I let her think I was blind, desperate for her affection. All the while, her father was feeding me the truth. His empire was real, but his fortune was built on trust, not just on money. He wanted an heir who understood loyalty above all else. He wanted me. I stayed silent for weeks, watching her weave her own trap of betrayal. Every message, every meeting with my so-called best friend, I documented. I built the case, brick by brick. It wasn't just emotional betrayal, it was financial too. She had been siphoning money from her father's accounts into a private one. Planning to run away with her lover, I made sure her father saw everything, every transfer, every lie. That night of the confrontation, the dining table was arranged, just as it had been on the first evening I entered the house. Her father was at the head, Matthew was on his right, and I was on his left. She didn't notice the folder at his side until he opened it. The folder contained everything: bank statements, photos, and messages, proof of her betrayal in stark black and white. Her face went pale. "Is this a joke?" she stammered. But her father's silence was more devastating than any outburst of anger. I leaned forward, my voice calm. "You always said I'd never be more than what your father allowed," I told her. "You were right, but you forgot one thing. He allowed me everything." Her eyes widened in horror. It was in that moment she finally understood who the real pawn had been all along. Her father didn't shout or curse. He simply removed her name from the will, handed me the keys, and in that crushing silence, she broke. People mistakenly think revenge is about fire and fury. They're wrong. It's about ice and patience. It's the quiet satisfaction of watching someone crumble. Under the weight of their own arrogance, Matthew lost everything that night. Her inheritance, her lover, her illusions. She stormed out, but not before whispering, "You'll regret this." Perhaps, but regret is a small price to pay for justice. Now I sit at the same table, at the head of the empire she believed was hers. Her father trusts me, with everything he built, because I proved I could see beyond the surface. I still think about that day I stopped on the curb, the moment I chose humanity over a schedule. 7 minutes. That's all it took to alter the course of my life forever. 7 minutes to lose Matthew. 7 minutes to win everything else. And I would be late again every single time. Do let me know in the comments section what lesson you get from this story. Thanks.